I'm on the moon. And the excitement, the wonder, the thrill, the adventure of it all.
There are secrets buried on the moon, but they aren't alien bases or ancient ruins. They are human truths locked away in the memory of the few who went there. Charles Duke, the youngest man to walk on the lunar surface, is now sharing his. After 50 years of playing a supporting role in the Apollo legend, he's stepping forward to correct the record. He claims the official narrative is missing a crucial detail, a shocking sensory experience that made him realize what he was seeing up there was beyond normal human perception. The man who saw the moon twice. You see, the funny thing about Charles Duke is that before he ever set foot on the moon, the world already knew his voice. Millions of people watching the Apollo 11 broadcast in 1969 heard him speak from Mission Control in Houston. With his thick southern drawl, he was the calm in the storm, the lifeline to the heavens. When Neil Armstrong's voice crackled through the speakers with the historic words, "The Eagle has landed," it was Duke who replied, "Roger, tranquility, we copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue. We're breathing again." That single emotional line made him a part of history before his own boots ever touched lunar dust. But not all things are what they seem. Duke wasn't the one getting the ticker tape parade. He wasn't the man planting a flag. He was the invisible astronaut, the voice in the background guiding giants while quietly waiting for his own chance. What many overlooked is how this dual role shaped him in ways few people appreciate today. When you're the capsule communicator, or Capcom, you are the only voice the astronauts hear from Earth. Every word you speak is filtered through the immense pressure of a global audience. For Apollo 11, there was zero room for error. Duke carried that weight, and when Armstrong and Aldrin touched down safely, he shared in their triumph not as a passenger, but as a guardian. The thing nobody tells you is that this role came with a strange psychological twist. Imagine being the steady guide who talks humanity through its greatest achievement while knowing you're still stuck on the ground, 240,000 miles away. You live the mission in your bones, but from the wrong side of the glass. Duke later admitted that the tension of those moments never left him. He wasn't just a voice, he was a participant who had to suppress the deepest human urge to be there himself. That's what makes his own mission on Apollo 16, just 3 years later, so unique. Unlike Armstrong or Aldrin, Duke didn't just carry the memory of walking on the moon, he carried the double vision of being both earthbound and moonbound. He was the one who steadied voices trembling in space, and then the one who heard his own voice echoing inside a helmet on another world. To put it mildly, no other living astronaut has quite this perspective. Duke is the only man who was both the emotional anchor of the first landing and the scientific explorer of a later, more ambitious mission. His voice was recognized across continents, yet for years he remained a name few could place to a face. Invisible until he wasn't. In recent years, Duke has opened up about what that duality really meant. He said guiding Armstrong felt like being a father watching his kids take their first steps. When he finally got to walk on the moon himself, he couldn't help but compare the raw, sensory experience to what he had once only imagined through mission data and grainy video feeds. That contrast gave him an insight that no other astronaut could claim. For decades, he kept these reflections quiet, overshadowed by bigger names. But now he's finally sharing what he really saw. What he saw wasn't what he prepared for. It challenged everything. What the cameras missed. When Charles Duke finally stepped out of the lunar module onto the Descartes Highlands, he expected to see the moon exactly as he had trained for. Gray dust, jagged rocks, and a profound emptiness. But what struck him first wasn't the ground beneath his feet. It was the sky, or more accurately, the complete and total absence of it. Imagine standing outside at night and looking up, but then stripping away the stars, the faint glow of the atmosphere, and even the suggestion of distance. Above Duke's helmet wasn't just darkness. It was a black so absolute, so profound that he said it felt like falling into an infinite void. He called it an incredible contrast, the deepest, most velvety black sky imaginable, set against the almost blindingly bright lunar surface. What many people are crazy about are the stunning photos from Apollo, but Duke insists they don't do it justice. He explained that no camera could ever balance that extreme dynamic range. To the human eye, the difference was staggering and deeply unsettling. On Earth, our vision constantly adjusts between shadows and sunlight, but on the moon, that sharp divide was permanent. Every boulder looked as if it were etched with a diamond, and every shadow cut a line as crisp as an ink spill on white paper. The cameras flattened what was, in person, an overwhelming and alien reality. And here's the twist that still surprises people. He couldn't even see the Earth. The thing nobody tells you is that the most iconic image of the space age, the beautiful blue marble hanging over a desolate horizon, was completely invisible from the Apollo 16 landing site. The Earth was directly overhead, positioned just out of sight above the top of his helmet's visor. Duke explained that if he tried to look straight up, all he saw was the inside of his own helmet. The very suit that kept him alive blocked the one view most of us imagine as the highlight of being there. Think about that for a second. We assume every moonwalker spent hours staring at a majestic Earthrise, overwhelmed by the beauty of home. The reality for Duke's mission was far more practical and, in some ways, more isolating. The most poetic scene in pop culture simply didn't exist for him. This is a core reason he's speaking out now. He wants people to understand the truth, not the romanticized myth. The moon wasn't a glossy postcard. It was a brutal, stark, and claustrophobic experience limited by the very technology that made it possible. The helmet itself narrowed their world to a fishbowl. With a severely limited field of view, Duke could only see forward. To look up, down, or to the side, he had to twist his entire body. Peripheral vision was gone. This meant exploring the lunar surface was not just awe-inspiring, it was clumsy and disorienting. He described trying to survey a distant ridge while fighting against a bulky suit that refused to let him turn his head naturally. It wasn't the free, panoramic sweep we see in documentaries. It was a constant struggle inside hardware designed for survival, not for sightseeing. Yet even within those punishing limits, the emotional weight was immense. Duke said the incredible contrast between light and dark wasn't just visual, it felt spiritual. It was a world without gradients, without soft skies or distant haze, just pure light and pure void. He knew then that what the astronaut saw was more shocking than any headline, more than footprints. While the world remains fixated on Apollo 11, the first step, the flag, the grainy broadcast, Charles Duke has spent 50 years carrying the memory of Apollo 16, a mission that quietly pulled off scientific achievements that changed our understanding of the cosmos. The problem? Almost nobody remembers them. And to put it mildly, this eats at him. Because what he and his commander John Young accomplished wasn't just about following in Armstrong's footsteps. They were building something new, something history almost completely buried. What many overlooked is that Apollo 16 deployed the very first astronomical observatory on another world. This wasn't a satellite, it was a physical telescope planted directly on the lunar soil. The far ultraviolet camera/spectrograph was designed to capture light from distant stars and galaxies in wavelengths that are completely blocked by Earth's atmosphere. For the first time, humanity had a window into the universe free from atmospheric distortion. Duke later called it an incredible tool that gave astronomers a view no observatory on Earth could ever match. This was a monumental milestone in science, yet it's a feat most textbooks barely mention. Furthermore, their mission was no short jaunt. Duke and Young spent 71 hours on the surface. That's nearly 3 full days, one of the longest stays of the entire Apollo program. They weren't there to sightsee. They were on the clock, working relentlessly. They drove the lunar rover over 16 miles across the rugged Descartes Highlands, a region specifically chosen for its unique geology. They hammered at rocks, drilled deep core samples, and hauled back a massive collection of lunar material. By the time they lifted off, they had gathered 209 pounds of samples, one of the most geologically diverse and valuable collections ever returned from the moon. Even today, half a century later, laboratories around the world are still analyzing the pristine rocks Duke himself carried home. The thing nobody tells you is that Apollo 16 was loaded with advanced scientific gear. The command module, orbiting above, carried X-ray and gamma-ray spectrometers that mapped the moon's chemical composition from orbit. These weren't simple gadgets. They revealed hidden fingerprints of aluminum, magnesium, and other elements across the lunar surface, providing crucial data that reshaped theories about how the moon was formed. Scientists still cite that data today. Yet when people talk about the great Apollo missions, it's always 11, the first landing, 13, the near disaster, or maybe 17, the last one. Apollo 16, arguably one of the most scientifically productive missions, simply slips through the cracks. Duke feels that sting personally. He has admitted in interviews that his mission deserves more than a footnote. He understands it lacked the heart-stopping drama of Apollo 13 or the historic romance of Armstrong's first words. But in terms of pure scientific return, it was a powerhouse. His frustration is simple. If we forget the science, we've missed the entire point of risking human lives to go there in the first place. This mission was the culmination of a decade of work, a chance to finally do geology on another world. And they succeeded beyond anyone's wildest dreams. The pressure of the mission was immense, a non-stop marathon of scientific objectives, an astronaut's burden. At 89 years old, Charles Duke has embarked on a new, unexpected mission, one that takes place not in the vacuum of space, but in the noisy arena of public opinion. He has become one of the last guardians of the Apollo legacy, confronting a rising tide of moon landing deniers with the unshakable truth of his own experiences. For him, it's no longer just about setting the historical record straight. It's about protecting a monumental human achievement that he feels is under constant siege in the digital age. You see, in recent years, Duke has found himself face-to-face with people who flat out tell him he never went to the moon. In one widely reported encounter at a public event, a reality denier cornered him, aggressively questioning the authenticity of the missions. Instead of getting angry, Duke looked the man in the eye and calmly replied with the 5 most powerful words he could muster. "Sir, I was there." His voice carried the indisputable weight of someone who not only guided Armstrong down from mission control, but also spent 3 days working on the lunar surface himself. That is a level of authority no YouTube conspiracy video or anonymous internet comment can ever challenge. But the denials still bother him. Duke admits it's deeply frustrating that over half a century after humanity's greatest technological triumph, a significant portion of the population believes it was all a hoax filmed in a Hollywood studio. He takes it personally, because to him, when someone denies Apollo, they aren't just erasing a line in a history book. They are erasing the sweat, the risk, and the ultimate sacrifice of the thousands of engineers, scientists, and astronauts who poured their lives into the program, some of whom never came home. They are dishonoring the memory of friends he lost along the way. This is why he continues to fight back, not with anger, but with irrefutable personal evidence. Duke methodically explains the small sensory details that only someone who has lived them could possibly know. He talks about the strange sensation of 1/6 gravity, which made even a simple hop feel like a controlled, slow-motion flight. He describes the intense, unfiltered heat of the sun on his suit, the bone-deep silence that fell over him when he would momentarily cut the comms, and the fine, abrasive texture of lunar dust that clung to every seam and joint of his suit. He points to the nearly 850 pounds of moon rocks still sitting in secure labs around the world, rocks that contain isotopes and mineral compositions found nowhere on Earth. What makes his testimony so powerful is his unique dual perspective. He was not just another astronaut, he was the Capcom for Apollo 11. This means he can speak to the mission from both sides of the radio. This combination makes him virtually untouchable in these debates. He's the last living astronaut who can say he was both the guide for the first landing and an explorer himself. So, what do you believe is the true legacy of Apollo? Was it a glorious end to a space race, or just the first chapter in humanity's journey to the stars? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe.